Assalamu alaikum dear students. Welcome to a new video of mine. Today we are going to discuss a new topic related to William Shakespeare's play Hamlet. And today we are going to discuss Hamlet's delay. This is our topic for today. Hamlet's delay is also called as Hamlet's procrastination. Today we are going to discuss the different factors and different reasons behind the delay of the duty of revenge by the hero Hamlet in the tragedy of Hamlet. But before discussing these factors and reasons behind the delay of the duty of revenge by Hamlet, let's have an introduction to this topic. It is said that Hamlet is the Mona Lisa of literature. This famous saying is said by T.S. Eliot, a 20th century poet and a literary critic. He said that Hamlet is as confusing and baffling as is Mona Lisa's painting. And he also said Hamlet as Mona Lisa of literature because of another reason. Perhaps he had in his mind that as Mona Lisa's painting is fresh and relevant today, in the same way, the tragedy of Hamlet, the play Hamlet, is also relevant today. So as Mona Lisa's painting is universal and relevant today, in the same way, the tragedy of Hamlet, though it was written in 16th century England, but still it is relevant to 21st century. It is still fresh and universal like Mona Lisa's painting. And Hamlet is a confusing play in the sense that Hamlet has many baffling and confusing points that has been discussed by different critics over the ages. Right? One such baffling and confusing point related to the tragedy of Hamlet is Hamlet's madness. Over the ages, right from the 16th century till 21st century, different critics have interpreted Hamlet's madness in their own respective ways. Different critics gave their own theories about the madness of Hamlet, whether it was real one or unreal one. So this is one of the famous baffling point, confusing point, controversial point related to the tragedy of Hamlet. Next important confusing and baffling point related to the tragedy of Hamlet is subjectivity and objectivity of the supernatural element in the form of the ghost. Right? It is said that the ghost that makes its appearance during the course of the play in the tragedy of Hamlet, it is very confusing one. It is very controversial ones, in the sense that sometimes this very ghost appears to be subjective one. At another occasion, it turns out to be objective one. So it baffles and confuses the audience and the reader. So this is another important baffling and confusing point related to the tragedy of Hamlet. And the last, but the most important baffling, confusing, and controversial aspect of the tragedy of Hamlet is Hamlet's delay or Hamlet's procrastination. Right? This is the most baffling and the most confusing aspect of the tragedy of Hamlet. Different critics over the ages discussed, debated this particular point. They debated over this particular problem. They said that because of certain factors, certain reasons, Hamlet delays the duty of revenge. So this is another important, confusing and baffling point related to the tragedy of Hamlet, right? So this is our introduction to the topic. Next, we are going to discuss the different factors, the different reasons pointed out by different critics over the ages behind the delay of the duty of revenge by the hero Hamlet in the tragedy of Hamlet. First important theory related to Hamlet's delay is the theory of external difficulties. This theory is presented by a group of critics which believes that Hamlet delays the duty of revenge because he faces certain external difficulties in his way to carry out the duty of revenge. These critics are of the view that if these external difficulties would not have been there in the way of Hamlet to carry out the duty of revenge, then he would have carried out the duty of revenge successfully. Now let's discuss these external difficulties one by one. First important external difficulty, it is believed, is Swiss bodyguards surrounding the person of King Claudius. The critics who believe that the theory of external difficulty is true one, they are of the view that Hamlet delayed the duty of revenge because King Claudius was surrounded by Swiss bodyguards, which really made it difficult for Hamlet to attack King Claudius, to avenge the murder of his father by killing King Claudius. So this is one such external difficulty faced by Hamlet in the process of carrying the duty of revenge. And due to this external difficulty, Hamlet kept on delaying the duty of revenge for an ideal opportunity when King Claudius would not be surrounded by Swiss bodyguards, then he would take his life. So this is one such theory of one such external difficulty faced by Hamlet to carry out the duty of revenge. Next important external difficulty faced by Hamlet is forcing King Claudius to publicly betray his guilt of murdering his own brother, right? It is said by the critics that Hamlet stages the play within the play to compel King Claudius to publicly confess that yes, he has committed the murder of his own very brother. And Hamlet could not do that. Hamlet could not make King Claudius to betray his guilt publicly. As a result of that, he kept on delaying the duty of revenge, kept on procrastinating the duty of revenge, because of which he failed to carry out the duty of revenge on time. So this is the next second important external difficulty faced by Hamlet to carry out the duty of revenge. Third important external difficulty faced by Hamlet to carry out the duty of revenge is King Claudius's shrewdness and cleverness. It is said by the critics that King Claudius was a shrewd and a clever villain of the piece. Because of his shrewdness and cleverness, he forced Hamlet to delay the duty of revenge. Or in other words, because of his shrewdness and cleverness, Hamlet was kept at bay. He was kept at distance by King Claudius to carry out the duty of revenge. As a result of that, Hamlet kept on delaying the duty of revenge, right? So these are the three major external difficulties faced by Hamlet in his process of carrying out the duty of revenge. It is said by a group of critics. But there are serious objections against this theory of external difficulties. One such serious objection against this theory of external difficulty is that this theory of external difficulty is not at all supported by textual evidence. Text of the play Hamlet does not support this theory of external difficulties. Nowhere in the play, either Hamlet or any other character refers to the fact that Hamlet delays the duty of revenge because he faces external difficulties. So this is one such serious objection against the theory of external difficulties. Next important objection against this theory of external difficulties is that whenever Hamlet talks about the duty of revenge, whenever Hamlet talks about his vengeance upon King Claudius, he never refers to external difficulties faced by him in his way to carry out the duty of revenge. He never refers to them. So it means that Hamlet did not face any external difficulties in his way to carry out the duty of revenge. If he would have faced any external difficulties, he would have mentioned them in his soliloquies, in his dialogues, at any occasion during the play or during the course of the play. So this is the second important serious objection to this theory of external difficulties. Third important serious objection against this theory of external difficulties is Laertes, during the course of the play, they raises people of Denmark against King Claudius. Or in other words, he convinces the people of Denmark to rise against, to revolt against the king of the time, King Claudius. He remains successful. He gathers quite a number of people to rebel against, to revolt against King Claudius. Now the question rises, if Laertes does not face any external difficulty to raise people against King Claudius, right, then why Hamlet would face any external difficulty to carry out the duty of revenge? If we compare the status of Laertes in this play with Hamlet, then we would come to know that Hamlet is much more an influential personality as compared to Laertes. If Laertes, a less influential person, impactful person, does not face any external difficulty in his way to raise people against the king of the time, the king of his own country, King Claudius, then why Hamlet would face any external difficulty to carry out the duty of revenge, right? Hamlet is much more influential, much more powerful than Laertes. So this is another important serious objection against the theory of external difficulties. Fourth important serious objection against this theory of external difficulties is that Hamlet never stages the play within the play to make King Claudius to publicly confess his guilt of the murder of his brother. Hamlet does not stage the play for this purpose. Hamlet stages the play within the play just to confirm the news of the ghost, whether the ghost was true one or it was untrue one, whether the news of the ghost, information of the ghost was true one or untrue one, whether it was really the ghost of his father or it was some devil who has appeared in the shape, in the guise of his father and wants to mislead him towards a misadventure, towards the murder of an innocent person, right? So this was the purpose of the performance of the play within the play conducted by Hamlet. So this is the last but not the least objection against this theory of external difficulties. So this theory of external difficulties is rejected, stands rejected in the light of these four serious objections against it. Second important theory related to Hamlet's delay or Hamlet's procrastination of the duty of revenge is the theory of internal difficulties. There's a group of critics which believes that Hamlet delayed the duty of revenge because not because of the external difficulties, but because of the internal difficulties. In other words, according to these critics, Hamlet delayed the duty of revenge because of something that was going on either in his mind or in his psychology or in his heart or in his somewhere in his insight, right? He delayed the duty of revenge because of his inner difficulties, because of his either because of his mind, either or because of his psychology, or because of his heart, or because of his morality, exquisite moral sensibility, or because of his conscience, or any other reason, right? And in this regard, critics are of the view that Hamlet had a very pricking and a sensitive conscience, right? He had a very sensitive conscience, due to which he kept on delaying the duty of revenge. Hamlet had numerous opportunities to carry out the duty of revenge, but he delayed them. He postponed them, right? He simply ignored them, right? He delayed the duty of revenge despite having those opportunities. Why? Because his conscience became a hurdle in his way during all these opportunities to carry out the duty of revenge. Now, apparently, it seems to be a very valid theory. Apparently, it seems to be a very genuine and true type of a very convincing type of a theory. But if you look at the play closely, study the story of the play closely, follow the career of Hamlet during the story of the tragedy of Hamlet, then you clearly would come to know that Hamlet nowhere in the play refers to his conscience as a hurdle in his way to carry out the duty of revenge. Nowhere in his soliloquies, nowhere in his dialogues, under no circumstances, Hamlet refers to his conscience as a hurdle in his way to carry out the duty of revenge. If Hamlet would have had any conscience-related problem to carry out the duty of revenge, he would have mentioned them. He would have mentioned this problem when he, delayed the duty of revenge or left King Claudius when he was busy in prayers, right? When he was kneeling before God, he was feeling remorse over his murder of his brother, right? At that time, Hamlet leaves King Claudius in this position, and he says that he would kill him under different circumstances. If Hamlet would have faced his conscience as a difficulty in his way to carry out the duty of revenge, he would have referred to it over here at this occasion, but he doesn't refer to it. At the next moment, when Ghost makes its appearance in the chamber, in Gertrude's chamber, over there Hamlet speaks to the ghost. But over there, Hamlet does not refer to his conscience. He never mentions before the ghost that his conscience is becoming a hurdle in his way to carry out the duty of revenge. If Hamlet would have faced any conscience-related hurdle in his way to carry out the duty of revenge, then he would have informed about it to the ghost in the chamber scene, in the Gertrude's room scene. But he doesn't refer to it. So it means that Hamlet did not face any conscience-related internal hurdle to carry out the duty of revenge. So this brief discussion proves that nowhere in the play Hamlet refers to conscience as a hurdle, internal difficulty to carry out the duty of revenge. So this is another important theory which is held by different critics related to the Hamlet's delay of the duty of revenge. Next important theory related to Hamlet's delay is Hamlet's exquisite moral sensibility. There is a group of critics which believes that Hamlet delayed the duty of revenge because of his fine moral sensibility. In other words, these critics are of the view that Hamlet delayed the duty of revenge because of his strong moral sense, right? In other words, these critics are of the view that Hamlet hated the very idea of committing a murder of a person. Though that person is the killer of his father, but still he hated the very idea, the very act of vengeance. As a result of that, he postponed, he delayed the duty of revenge. Right? There is no doubt that Hamlet was a man with a very fine and a very sensitive moral sensibility. Right? He was a very person who had a very strong moral sense. Right? And this strong moral sense of Hamlet is displayed by different occasions. But there is no textual evidence which might support this theory, which might say that yes, Hamlet delayed the duty of revenge because of his exquisite moral sensibility or because of his moral hatred for the very act of vengeance against the killer of his father. Right? So this is another important theory given by a group of critics. Next important theory is given by a German philosopher and a thinker, and his name is Goethe. Goethe presented his own theory, his own point of view related to Hamlet's delay or Hamlet's procrastination of the duty of revenge. Goethe believed that Hamlet is most lovely, pure, and most moral being, not having the strength of nerve. As a result of that, sinking beneath the burden that is laid upon his shoulders. So this is the point of view of Goethe about Hamlet's character and Hamlet's personality, that Hamlet is a lovely, pure, and most moral being, that he is a lovely person and pure person and a man with exquisite moral sensibility. And he doesn't possess the strength of nerves, strong nervous system, which could have enabled him to face the tough times of life successfully. As a result of that, whenever a sort of a duty is laid upon his shoulders, he sinks under it. So if we believe that this theory of Goethe is true one, then we only have sympathy for Hamlet. We only have pity for Hamlet, because it means that if Hamlet is a very fragile and a breakable being and a very, very dainty and delicate type of a being, then he is pushed into these rough and tough circumstances by fate, right? It's a big cruelty to Hamlet. It's an atrocity to Hamlet that he is not capable of performing the duty of revenge, but still he is pushed by circumstances, fate and divinity to carry out the duty of revenge. It is an injustice to Hamlet. If we believe in Goethe's theory, we only have sympathy for Hamlet and pity for Hamlet. But if we closely study the play Hamlet, then we feel that whatever picture of Hamlet is drawn by Goethe, it is untrue. It turns out to be untrue. It proves to be untrue, in the sense that there are different occasions, there are different circumstances during the course of the play which prove that Hamlet is a very rough and a tough kind of a person who is capable of performing rough and tough kind of a duty in the form of duty of revenge. Take the example of Hamlet speaking to the ghost in the very opening of the play. Hamlet speaks to the ghost despite the fact that he was warned by his friends, his people, that he shouldn't follow the ghost in the privacy. But still, Hamlet does not listen to the advice of his near and dear ones. He doesn't listen to them. He simply listens to his heart and mind, and he follows the ghost and talks to the ghost. So this proves that Hamlet was not a lovely kind of a being, incapable of, having strong nerves to face the rough and tough times in life. Then the way he grapples with Laertes in the grave, the way he fights with Laertes, a duel, the way he takes the life of King Claudius, the way he boards the pirate ship and fights against the ship, All these are the circumstances which prove that Hamlet is a fearless man. All these circumstances prove that Hamlet is a fearless man. He's a brave man. He's a courageous man, right? He turns out to be even a horrible man under different circumstances of life. He takes the life of Polonius. These are the examples which prove that Hamlet is not a person who doesn't possess strong nerves. He does possess strong nerves. And all these incidents in which Hamlet was involved or Hamlet is involved prove that he is a man with strong nerves who is capable of fighting against tough times, difficult times. So this theory of Goethe proves to be wrong. Goethe believes that Hamlet delayed the duty of revenge because he was incapable of, he was not made up of the stuff which could have enabled him to carry out the duty of revenge successfully. But if you see the actual text, actual story of the play, things come out to be the other way around. They turn out to be the opposite of what Goethe said about Hamlet's character. So this theory stands rejected again. Next theory related to Hamlet's delay is given by two critics. One is Mr. Schlegel and the other is S.T. Coleridge. These two critics are of the view that Hamlet delayed the duty of revenge because he was an excessively thinking man. This theory is largely accepted one. This theory is largely true one. This theory is said to be textually supported. There are different occasions. There are at least two strong occasions during the course of the play when Hamlet refers to his thinking, his excessive thinking, excessive reflection over different aspects of life. For example, in fourth soliloquy, in his fourth soliloquy, Hamlet refers to his excessive thinking. And in this fourth soliloquy, he says that the native hue of resolution is sicklied over with the pale cast of thought. Now, in this line, Hamlet uses the word thought, that his resolution is suppressed, is controlled, is contained by his thought, his excessive thinking. In other words, his resolution related to the duty of revenge, to carry out the duty of revenge, is suppressed, is contained, is restricted, is controlled by his excessive thinking. So this is an evidence which proves that Hamlet delays the duty of revenge because of his excessive thinking. Next important evidence from the text which proves that Hamlet delays the duty of revenge because of his excessive thinking is a line which is spoken out by Hamlet at a certain occasion during the course of the story, which prove that Hamlet delays the duty of revenge because of his excessive thinking. For example, in one of the lines he says that Craven's scruple of thinking too precisely on the event. Craven's scruple of thinking too precisely on the event. There is a word thinking he uses, that he all the time thinks and thinks over different things that happen in his life. And if any of the event or any of the incident takes place in his life, Hamlet is in the habit of thinking over it, dissecting it, analyzing it into bits and pieces. So these are the two different occasions during the course of the play in which Hamlet speaks about his excessive thinking. And he says that his excessive thinking does not allow his resolution, his determination to carry out things practically. So this is largely accepted point of view given by Schlegel and S.T. Coleridge. But still, even we accept this theory as true, but still we believe that this is not the only reason, only cause behind the delay of the duty of revenge by Hamlet. Next important theory related to Hamlet's delay of the duty of revenge is given by A.C. Bradley. A.C. Bradley is a critic who believes that Hamlet delays the duty of revenge because of not excessive thinking, but because of his melancholy. A.C. Bradley is of the view that there is no doubt that Hamlet delays the duty of revenge because of excessive thinking, but at the same time he says that Hamlet delays the duty of revenge not directly because of his excessive thinking. His direct cause of his delay of duty of revenge is his melancholy and not the excessive thinking. He believes that no doubt excessive thinking contributes to the production of melancholy in Hamlet, and in turn this melancholy in Hamlet saps up the energy of Hamlet, and nothing is left in Hamlet to act in the outer world, to carry out the duty of revenge. In other words, when Hamlet becomes melancholic, then his melancholy saps up, eats up all the energy that Hamlet possesses in his personality, right? Due to which he is left energyless, and due to this particular fact, Hamlet is not capable of carrying out the duty of revenge, at least at once. He keeps on delaying it because of his melancholy. So this is the point of view of A.C. Bradley, who believes that Hamlet delays the duty of revenge not directly because of excessive thinking, but directly because of his melancholy. So this is another important factor pointed out by A.C. Bradley behind Hamlet's delay. There is another theory presented by certain critics, and these critics believe that Hamlet delays the duty of revenge because of his own gifts given to him by God. No doubt Hamlet is a gifted man. He is a man with intellectual genius. He is a man with melancholic temperament. He is a man with exquisite moral sensibility. All these three gifts of Hamlet, qualities of Hamlet, becomes the real cause of his procrastination or the delay of the duty of revenge. Hamlet delays the duty of revenge because of these three gifts possessed by him. Hamlet is an intellectual genius, and because of which he thinks and thinks and thinks a lot, right? And he's a man with a fine moral sensibility, right? Whenever he thinks about the duty of revenge, he somehow finds a moral flaw in the duty of revenge. As a result of that, he wants some moral satisfaction before carrying out the duty of revenge, for which he delays the duty of revenge. And then his melancholic temperament. Melancholic temperament also plays a part in making Hamlet to delay the duty of revenge. So these are the three gifts of Hamlet, good qualities of Hamlet, that make him to postpone the duty of revenge, right? So these are certain theories, certain factors pointed out by the critics over the ages, which tell us that why Hamlet delayed the duty of revenge. So this is our lecture for today, and this is it for today. I hope you have understood each and everything. Allah Hafiz.